So what's the skill that you think you're amazing at?
The skill that I am told many times that I'm amazing at is the ability to observe data in different places, put it together, synthesize it, and then make a plan against it.
Oh, okay.
Both the ability to, think conceptually and across a business system, what's really driving this ecosystem, but then to pull it together and just act like a bias to action is like one of my mottos. Like, it's like when you write the email, if you don't press, I tell myself, if you don't press send, nothing will happen, right? So you can observe all these things and trends and what do people want and whatever. But then at the end of the day, you have to go, okay, and now what are we going to do?
So you're when you're trying to sort of synthesize all this information, do you have like a process? Do you have a system? It's just sort of in your head? Like, how do you go about that?
That is a great question.
Thank you.
I'm going to answer that with two elements. So probably the real answer is I may do it fairly organically. However, so do not laugh. It is amazing to me in how many circumstances of my entire career I have gone back to I think it used to be called the golden triangle of positioning. It really makes me laugh. This is like from the 90s maybe. But fundamentally, no matter what I'm doing, you always go back to the same three things, right? Which is like, what are my capabilities? What is my differentiator? What am I good at? What does my customer want, right? What's motivating them? What do they need? And external, right? Whether it's what's my competitive set, sometimes what's market trends. And so I think it makes me, I learned it with the name about positioning, but really, like, that's what you do no matter what you're doing.
In marketing.
I just like, no matter what analysis I'm doing, I got to look at how am I special? what's in it for the customer, right? And then what's my competition up to? Mm-hmm. And everything starts there. Then the other piece that I think as I've gone on in my career and in more elevated roles, I've come to understand is just as important as any of that is all the internal stuff around what does my leadership need to accomplish, right? So I think marketing plays this really interesting role of serving, like everybody, we serve our leadership at the top, but also serving. It's not even just serving the customer. Like, I have to drive response. So I have to be real world based in my choices.
That's interesting. So it's not just your job is to report back what you're seeing. It's that in order to achieve what it is that the higher ups want you to achieve, you have to be honest about the reality.
That's right. That's right.
And your job is to sort of make everybody understand.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's
a little bit why some of those analytic tools, you need some of those analytic tools.
Like which ones?
The ones we just talked about, like whether it's
gotcha.
As simple as a triangle, or whether it's nowadays it could be huge models with millions of pieces of data. But it doesn't. No matter what it is, it's like anything. You got to have the story, and you got to have the data to convince them. Right.
Right. The story about the story is your presumption, and the data is this is why I think this is why I believe I'm right.
Yeah, that's right.
And you should too.
That's right. This is why I'm going to go back to where we started, which is why I always say when I try to think about amazingness as a marketer, which is such a fun topic for a podcast, I go, well, I think amazingness for a marketer is like amazingness for any business leader, actually.
Tell me more.
I think people who are really able to build businesses are always looking to connect the dots. They just are. They just are. They just have they're scanning kind of, and then like finding the opportunity in there, and then trying to kind of go big against it. And I think the people who really, it's like both personally successful, but also actually drive real growth, just have that ability.
So I'm going to put a label on what it is that I think that you're amazing
Yeah.
at. You're a synthesizer.
Yeah.
You,
That's
you're
right.
you're taking. There's all these different streams of. There's the creative side. There's the analytic side. There's the tech side, and somebody has to sort of take
Yes.
all that input and there's the political side. Frankly,
That's right.
somebody has to take all that input and say, okay, here's all the information coming in.
That's right.
Here's what my understanding of it, and here's what we're going to do.
That's right.
And so
That
so
is right.
so talk to me a little bit about so this is not necessarily the most important question, but just that for me the most interesting. So how do you marry that creative side? What are sort of some ways that you marry the creative side and the analytic side, both in terms of just conceptually and also just personalities, like where you have like your your head of analytics saying, we think that the green pixels work better, and the creative side says, you
Such a
know,
great example.
and
I've been in
and
those. I've been in those color conversations, and then yeah, that's funny. Um, I have a couple. So I have two different techniques,
yes,
actually.
go
I have
for it.
so for me personally, I take great joy in both. It's funny that you raise this topic because I have said for, I mean, literally a long 20, 30 years that what I love about my field, which I still absolutely love, is that I get to use a creative side of my brain and I get to use a deeply scientific analytic side of my brain. And how many fields do you get to do both?
Right.
So a part of it is there's a joy. There's literally a joy in that. Um, I am a believer, and I am a big believer actually, in giving people context so that they can make better decisions. I actually came at it from a leadership perspective of
Okay.
how do I mean, to some extent, like let control go so that you can have a team of whether it's 10, 20, 50, 100 people, like not get stuck, right? Waiting for senior people to tell them what to do, but they can actually go out and really be energized and own
Right.
what they own and get it done. But also like, you're not looking at it going like, you put what out there? So I'm a big believer in providing context. And so one of the ways in which I try, doesn't always work, but I try to get the more creative types with the more analytic types is if you get them together and they are providing each other with their contexts.
Mm.
Um, I do believe they each make better decisions when they go back to their desks.
So what is that? What are some practical things that happen in an exercise? Is it is it they're sharing their research? They're sharing it's project specific. What is that? What does that look like?
It can be as simple as how you set up your meetings, right? And who do you invite to a meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you team together to work on something? I think it's a lot of people techniques. I don't think it's a lot of. I think that's what it is.
This reminds me of I remember hearing, I forget what, one of the sort of the great Mad Men era firms. I think it was Ogilvy. Their great innovation was art and copy used to be on separate floors,
Great example.
and
Yes.
and then they said, wait a minute, you can have art and copy working in the same teams, and that completely revolutionized advertising because there was
Yes.
one sort of way of thinking and another way of thinking that, and it just changed because like the old ads was art and copy down here, and then you could
Yes.
sort of bring them together and it sounds like you're sort of doing art and copy 2.0,
Yes.
that you're
I can't. I actually find this funny because I just had a meeting earlier today. Like one guy did the copy's done. Now I got the art guy. Like it's funny. So they change and then they don't change. So
right.
that's
Correct.
the other thing, which gets a little interesting, is that the UX folks today who are trained in design thinking,
Mm-hmm.
they also, in their own way, they sort of have solved. It's the same thing, right? So obviously, like they're designers, they're creative, but they
Right.
do have these whole systems and processes. They have processes
Right.
so that they're also, I feel like, just in similar challenges and similar solutions.
Right. It's so
Yeah.
it's putting a process back into.
Yeah. Probably haven't talked about process. And I mean, was
So
exciting
well,
topic,
actually,
but maybe we should talk about process.
I was gonna say
Okay.
so it was actually I was gonna say it's a perfect segue because you were talking about the two things that you do is you sort of synergize all this information and then you get it done. So
Yeah.
tell me about getting it done. What does that mean?
Um, there are a few. So I have many. I view this as there are tricks of the trade, and you can pick different ones
Okay.
depending on what you need. I am a believer in marketing plans. I don't even know if a lot of people think they're a waste of paper, but I don't actually think they're a waste of paper because how do you synthesize this? I mean, you have to do it somewhere. So I do find some of those. I mean, you'd be surprised. I have like many templates to do exactly what we just talked about. To lay it out in a clear way, also in a logical, methodical way, right? So I have to do, I have to look at last year's results. I have to look at this. I have to do things in a certain order so that my output. And by the way, this isn't even all the way to actual campaign output. This is just plan output. Like it has to be done in a logical
And
way.
what goes into your plan?
Um,
Like what are the questions that are what are the issues that are being is it budget tactics? Is it what's in the plan?
so I start with everything we just started our conversation with, right? So I'm going to start with what have I been doing? How is it performing? What do I want to, the good old start, stop, continue. It can be as simple as that. Right. Then I want to look at what my competition's doing and what's happening in the market, those kinds of things. And then you got to look at what you got to get accomplished that year, right? I got to there's objectives. What are my business objectives? What are my strategic objectives, right? And is there a particular audience I'm trying to build, an affinity for? Like there's questions of really, what am I trying to, you have to look at whether it's a year or a season, what am I actually really trying to get accomplished? Mm-hmm. And then I will say all of my plans, and I think it's funny because, I have some clients are very sophisticated and have very complicated things and can have very specific, if I give you $10 more, you can get me, 0.6 of a new customer, right? And then I have clients that are really simple. But at the end of the day, they always basically they have strategies that map to tactics, that map to channels, that match to projected outcome. Always, no matter whether it's super fancy or super simple.
Do you it's actually funny because I was just thinking about I was working with somebody at at a startup, and as startups are, things change constantly.
Yeah.
And she was basically like, there was a particular element of planning, and she was like, I used to plan, but what's the point even? Like, so how do you
That's a very good question.
how do you sort of square the
So
circle of planning with all the flexibility of?
I think I just don't believe in not planning. And I, by the way, am a big believer in team, and I move people around very fungibly. It's not that, but you still, at some level, have to know where you're going.
Right.
I just think you do.
Right. So, is there any of it? You said something interesting there. You said many of the things that are interesting, but one thing that caught my attention is, are there conversations you have to have with leadership about staying the course?
Yes. I'm a big, what word? So, okay, I have to be careful. I don't really use this word publicly, but I personally use the word courage a lot with myself. I think great marketers are courageous.
Expand on
And it's, I think you have to have a viewpoint on the future. Doesn't have, now, to your point, this may be a future that's like a month from now. It may not be a future that's a decade from now. But you have to have a point of view, I think. And then you have to, as we just talked about, you've got to make decisions and plan against your view. And you just have to have the courage. It does. Now, I will say this. I am a marketing consultant, right? I am not, and this is really a fair thing to say. I am not a, what's the right word? Middle to upper management marketer and I've worked in them, in a 50,000 person firm. Like they may not want courage may be the exact wrong thing to have. And, protect. In fact, I think that is true. It's one of the reasons as I've gotten further in my career, I've enjoyed actually working with smaller firms, right? So in a really big firm, it's more about protecting your flank. When you get into a smaller firm where you're a challenger brand, and it's not that. It's about having the courage and just doing something bold. And so I think, again, some of this may be a little bit being mindful of what environment you're in and then putting yourself in the environment you prefer.
How do you create that confidence in sort of all the stakeholders to say, okay, we're nervous about this, but let's go for it. Or let's stay the course.
I think so. The answers to those things are, I think, real, not in a bad way, but just fundamentally political, right? So it's, you have to hear them. You have to reflect back that you've heard them. I have to remind myself that sometimes, right? Like everybody has, and I mean, like interests, they have things that are on their agenda and things they worry about. And so you have to accept them. And I think you have to many times even sort of articulate them back so they know they've been heard. And you have to sometimes, I think, help other people conceive of like, okay, there's like, what's the upside and also what's the risk and how could we manage the risk and like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And like, sometimes the worst thing is really bad and you kind of have to say, okay, maybe I might not have been, actually that has happened to me. I might not have been right on that. But I think it's really just political. But what doesn't vary, well, I mean, I can change my mind, but if I still believe my judgment is right, I do have the courage to stick with it. That's how I put it.
Right. That's so I just want to make sure we've covered like this whole idea of synthesizing and bringing it to action. What have we not covered yet in terms of doing that right?
So I think this is going to sound trite, but so we have spent a lot of time on it. But what I would say is we didn't really do the last piece of the chain, which is you synthesize, you make a plan, you try it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And, sometimes you just have to go back and eat humble pie and say, okay, we tried it. It didn't work. And life goes on, and you try something else. But I think that is the last piece. And by the way, this is the thing. That is then what helps me synthesize better for the next thing. Because now I had an experiment that didn't work, but now I know it didn't work.
Fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
Are there ways you're setting manage expectations? I'd imagine the answer is yes. That you're managing expectations in the front end to say this might not work, but
totally.
So what are the kinds of things that you're doing to set that up?
I have one right now where I'm very fortunate. We sort of now we joke about it, which is always a good sign. It's the what do we have to lose? So I have a program where we are doing paid social at a scale we have never done, and also actually to teenagers as well as adults, and that is definitely new territory.
Demographics and
yeah, totally new. And and even because we're looking at I'm like, is that in brand? I don't even know how to answer that question. Right.
Are you using influencers, or is it just paid media?
At this point in time, it's paid media. This is like step one. Talk to me next year. Um, and we just go, what do we have to lose? I don't, I mean, the nice thing about social, you could turn it off if you had to. But it's fun. I mean, it's really fun. That's the other thing. Once you go to a place, I mean, by the way, I work with many financial institutions who cannot say, what do we have to lose? Right. And I'm very aware of that. Like if you're in a regulated environment, you don't have that freedom. Right. And you just know that. Right. But when you do have that freedom, it is fun to go play.
Because you can just experiment.
Totally. We have now that's where technology really helps, right? You can have so many different types of creative out there at the same time.
Do you have a rule of thumb for when you call it quits? Or rules of thumb?
That is a very good question. I'm going to say it's less than the fingers on my hand and go with that. In other words, you can try it a second time. You could try it. You always try something a little different. Try it a third time. But at some point, you just.
If you keep trying the same thing and it doesn't work,
then it doesn't work.
You got to move on.
Yeah. What gets hard is the question, is it that my marketing tactic wasn't right? Or is it that like this audience is truly not interested in this thing? Or I've had one, is there a barrier that I am not understanding?
So what?
How do you? Those are all good. Yeah, that's part of the synthesis. Yeah, great, all good questions.
And so do you go back and do more refined research, more refined experiments? How do you find the weak link?
I try to change something, and something that's big enough that it's readable. Right? If you just change the edges, you may not actually be able to read it. So. If it's an event, I might change the location. If the registration process is terrible, it might be, which it's hard to want to go invest when something isn't working. But, there's a lot of SaaS out there. You could try, maybe you try something that you would never roll out with, because it may not, but you just say, all right, I'm going to try it for this and see if that makes the difference. Mm-hmm. You just have to. You just got to try. Like I said, you got to try, and you got to try big enough that it's readable, I think.
Right.
And then I do, I started this saying, I started, doing segmentations for market research. A lot of people, there are people today who just don't believe in it at all. They're like, there's so much data out there. But I actually still believe in it. Sometimes you just got to ask your target audience, so you can get at the psychology, what is the psychology going on? This question about barriers and things, those are hard. You can observe a lot, right? With digital stuff, you really can observe. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you just got to talk to people.
So just research and focus groups and get on the phone and talk to people.
Watch them in their day. So I've done some of that. Let's go to their place of business and really see what's really happening.
Right. So actually understand. It's crazy idea to actually understand who you're marketing to.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool. Very cool. So I'm just
giving you an example because I feel like we haven't done that much specific. This is a funny one. I was at American Express at the time, marketing in small business. And I had run for a while a program where customers would come in and talk to us. So it actually got switched up. So we just went the other way. Let's go visit, one-on-one, visit a small business for, a morning. And it's such a little story, but these are the little stories that then inform your judgment forever afterwards. So this particular small business guy, very smart, makes shirts. Mm-hmm. And you suddenly realize I'm trying to market fairly complicated, financial things. He's in a tiny office in a corner of a place that is a sea of people making shirts. And I never forget that. My marketing has to be so insanely simple. even if what I'm selling is complicated, right? It just has to be so simple. I just can't forget. This guy isn't sitting, he's not me sitting on my laptop. He just isn't.
Right. He has a
Yeah.
whole different worldview, and he's very, very busy with many things that are not and nothing to do
Yes.
with American Express. And
Nothing. I
you
mean,
have
it's
to grab his
nothing.
attention really, really fast and just explain the value, and so he
Yeah,
can get it.
that's right. That's right.
That's great.
And yeah, for those of you, since I have been talking on this podcast, but for anybody who does not know Abe well already, there is nobody better than Abe in the whole world at taking complicated information and making it simple and appealing, and
Thank
so
you.
that you can just follow along.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you very much.
yeah.
Thanks. Um, so I'll ask you one last question that I should have asked you in the
Okay.
beginning. How would you just give your, well, two questions actually. Give us your elevator pitch, and how can we find you if we want you to if we want to work with somebody, if somebody listening wants to work with you, how can they find you?
Okay. I am easy to find. My name is Felicia Lipson, and my company is Lipson Marketing. And you can look up either my name or my company on LinkedIn and find me easily enough. And my email is felicia@lipsonmarketing.com. It's all the same. So I'm easy to find. And in terms of things that I like to do, I love to do marketing. I do also love to do product management, and I enjoy working with companies of many sizes, and really like to help companies grow. That is my favorite thing to do.
Nice. Nice. Cool. Um, Great.
Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you for being on the show. This is really learned a lot about just synthesizing, organizing, and courage, and just all things that we need.
Thank you. And I want to thank Abe for helping me to synthesize my thoughts on marketing and the field that we both are in and love. So thank you.